I want to go beyond the headlines. This is a very disturbing story, but it happened. Scientists working for the U.S. government secretly gave people sexually transmitted diseases as part of a study. It happened during the 1940s after World War II. At least 5,500 people in Guatemala, including prisoners, mental patients, and children, were experimented on. 1,300 of those were exposed to STDs, including syphilis and gonorrhea. 83 people died during those experiments, and the goal of the research was to determine whether taking penicillin after sex would protect against those sexually transmitted diseases. It was a medical priority at the time, especially in the military. Well, last fall, President Obama ordered a review of what happened, and now that panel has come out with its report. Joining us is the head of that panel, the Presidential Commission for the Study of Bioethical Issues. Amy Gutman is also the president of the University of Pennsylvania. Professor, first of all, explain to us what your panel has learned about this, perhaps even the most disturbing information about what your panel discovered.
A group of medical researchers, doctors and scientists working for the American government between 1946 and 1948 treated their fellow human beings in a way that can only be characterized as egregious and shocking. There were gross violations of human rights. They did not obtain the consent from any of the people they were using for research in Guatemala. And those people included some of the most vulnerable populations in Guatemala: mental patients, soldiers, children.
How did they infect them?
They infected them in a variety of ways. They infected them, some of them using commercial sex workers who they also infected with syphilis or gonorrhea. They, in one case, is so graphic that it's hard to actually speak about it, but one woman who was a mental hospital patient, they inoculated in her arm syphilis, and when she developed symptoms, Dr. Cutler wrote in his journal that it looked like she was dying. And then they injected gonorrheal pus in both her eyes, in her urethra, in her rectum, and she did die shortly thereafter. This happened over a many-month period,
Professor,
and they never treated. They never treated her.
It's just horrific when you hear stories like that, but we know this is really not the first time that something terrible like this has happened. The Tuskegee experiment with African Americans, that happened many years ago, and I understand that how they ended up discovering this case, this Guatemala case, was during the research of the Tuskegee experiment. Is that correct?
Yes. Susan Reverby, who is doing research on Tuskegee, discovered some documents. The Presidential Commission has subsequently combed through over 125,000 pages of documents and discovered that some of the same researchers who were involved in Tuskegee, which was not an inoculation study. What happened in Tuskegee was a group of African-American men were known to have syphilis, and they were not treated. In this case, this group of researchers actually actively inoculated people and did not obtain their consent. And earlier, in an experiment in Terre Haute, Indiana, they took pains. They knew that they did have to ethically and legally obtain a informed consent, and yet they went to Guatemala and they didn't do so.
All right, Professor, very disturbing information. Thank you for bringing it to us. And obviously this panel meant to prevent this kind of thing from happening again by exposing the ugliness of history and what our government has been capable of doing to make sure that that really never comes to light in the future. Thanks again, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you very much.